Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Ferris Makes Demos. Oh, what? Hold on. What happened here? Something's weird. What is this? Oh, I know what it is. Hold on. Technical difficulties. I tried to get this effect to be additive blended on top of my overlays. And it didn't work out, and I forgot to remove my attempt. There we go. Yep. This episode of how did Ferris mess up the stream this time? Hold on, let me fix something else too. Oh, such a professional. There we go. Boxes and crap all over my apartment right now. All right. This is ridiculous. Okay. Okay. I was also preparing for something else in the weekend, and I blame it on that. Anyway. So what I plan to do on this stream is I've got the shader Showdown qualifications from revision, and I would love to basically watch this together and commentate on what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, and probably talk a bit about ProVods. Like, I'm probably just going to sit here and commentate as if I were commentating there and it wasn't me competing, except I know what I was thinking, so that's kind of neat. In the meantime, or before we start that, the reason why the stream was late is because I was working on getting compute shaders in the tool, and they work now, which is rad. Although when I select stuff, maybe not then. But if I start moving things, I think the particle effect gets reset because the way my asset management works, it doesn't persist these buffers, which I need to fix. But anyway. The idea here is that I have just a shader storage buffer object, and then I bind that to a compute, or I bind I bind a compute shader, and then bind that buffer, and also time, and then do some stuff with the particle positions, and then I do a second pass where I draw from that buffer. Just to show a little bit about what that looks like, I've got one shader file here where I have this particle struct, so this is the state for each particle. It has a position, a velocity, and a life. And the idea is that the life goes from 1 to 0, and then when it's 0 again, it'll respawn. And the position and velocity will update with basic integration. So we map that to this buffer here. And then in the other shaders, there's this one, which is the initial shader that updates the positions. So we just read the particle from the big buffer. We figure out the spawn position, although we don't use that unless we reset the particles. We adjust the position with the current velocity. We dampen the velocity, and then we adjust the life. And I do this a little bit randomly so that they don't all just spawn and die at the same rate. And then here, we calculate the derivative of some noise field, which in this case is just FBM directly. And that's what gives us this curl noise effect, is that becomes the acceleration, is that vector that we calculate based on this derivative and some other stuff. And that derivative also isn't normalized, and that's on purpose so that we can, also have different magnitudes of how it's affecting the field. And then we add that to the velocity. And this was, of course, after the dampening and adjustment. And then if the particle is actually dead, we're going to overwrite all that with the default spawn stuff and then write that back to the buffer. And then the other one just pulls that out and displays it using instancing. And it's the exact same renderer that I did in IOTA. So if you guys are more curious about how that works, you can check that out in one of my recent videos. But yeah, what we get is this thing that it's just spawning particles, and then you can see this noise field is what gives it this kind of fluid look. So I made that today after getting compute shaders to work, and I was pretty happy about that, and then lost track of time, and that's why we're late. So I thought I at least owed it to you guys to show what I was doing and why I was late. Anyway, hi to guys in the chat. Zokwar, Pyro, Dark Second, Mad Moose, Tropical Trevor, Will Kirkby, Tartico, Daniel Collins, Sauce Hoss, Sir Click-A-Lot. How's it going, folks? Yeah, might as well just get into this stuff now. Tartico says Ferris makes money from demos? Yeah, I wish. Well, Kirkby, that reminded me, I still love the fact that my intro started with bokeh particles, and then straight after your demo showed up like, oh, you're doing bokeh particles? That's cute. Watch this. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Again, though, I really liked your intro. That was really good stuff. Dogwell Trevor, can I assume that the compute shader writing to the buffer is something that wasn't possible with just vertex shaders? After GL 4.3, it would have been possible. To do that feedback in the vertex shader as well, just with the shader storage buffer object. Which, of course, is the same GL version that shader or compute shaders got introduced in. So in this case, for kernel noise, you don't have to use compute shaders to do them. In fact, I did them several years ago with just ping pong buffers in fragment shaders. But in this way, I don't have to use ping pong buffers, first of all, which again would be the same with shader storage buffers anyway. So it makes it a little more convenient than the one I did several years ago. But yeah, mainly I plan to use this for other stuff, but this was a really easy test. So that should be the last we need to talk about that. I'm going to see if I can adjust this a little bit so we can get a little more screen coverage here. Hopefully without losing anything. And then I'm going to do a couple things here. Shut up, Slack. My friends are too productive. You know, I wish there were a way to get this to be like better full screen, but we're just going to have to live with something like that. So I think if I just do this. Nope, because I need you guys to hear this. At least I want to have the audio from the stream a bit quiet in the background here. So let me set this up. I think it's going to be that.
Shader Showdown 2018.
All right, how's that? I'll turn that down. So a little bit of context here. For those of you guys who don't know what we're going to watch here, Revision and several other demo parties do this competition where you start with this shader in this tool here. So we're each starting with exactly the same setup. And the setup also gets audio from the live DJ who's playing, although I believe in the qualification rounds, Provod's setup on the left here actually didn't have audio in the right channel, so he couldn't use FFT. Mine worked fine, and you will see me use that quite heavily here. But yeah. So we basically start with this exact same shader. We're able to change the code. We're able to reload it. All we have is this one full screen quad and the shader that draws that. We don't have any control over the vertex shader or multiple passes. We also have as input these textures, which you can see on the right. So we'll make use of some of those as well. And yeah, it's a pretty fun competition. It's not one that I end up taking particularly seriously in terms of like practicing for and stuff, because I kind of just like to wing it and have fun with that. But yeah. Also, as a heads up, I lost this round just to get that out of the way. Provod did a great job, and it was really fun. So yeah, might as well just start watching this. They told me beforehand if it was okay, they asked me beforehand if it was okay if they made it like a USA versus Russia thing when they were talking about it, and I was just, I don't care. I thought that was a bit lame, but it is what it is. Anyway, so we have 25 minutes. I expect to pause this a couple times. It's not. I don't think this will just be a 25-minute stream. The first thing you'll notice is right away, I'm waving in the Twitch chat. Someone kindly said, "Is he hailing a pizza?" Which is kind of funny. But anyway, what's happening is that the girl who went before me, Flopine, she is French, and so she had a French keyboard layout, and I'm a div. And when I brought up my keyboard and set everything up, I didn't test those things. So they had to come and fix my keyboard layout, but that was it. It took a minute or two. Provod basically clears out the original shader except all the uniforms. I didn't do that. I think there I'm fixed. But no, I was not hailing pizza. I was waving to the people to come fix my keyboard. I wish a pizza had shown up, though, let's be honest. Now they're joking about the keyboard layout. Yeah, that would have been awesome, Will Kirkby. I think at this point, Provod is setting up a ray marching loop. I knew I wasn't doing that, so I had when the previous round had happened, or while it was happening, previous 2 rounds, because there were 4 qualifiers, and this is the 3rd part. You can see that in the YouTube video as well. I'll link that, by the way. Link without the time step here, so you guys can check the rest of those out. But I had, as I was watching the other rounds, particularly as I was watching the second of the 4 rounds, I came up with an idea to do some bitwise pattern stuff. And so I had sat down and coded some stuff and just kind of played with it enough that I felt okay that I could kind of do something randomly and it would work. And yeah. So I had practiced that a little bit, but other than that, I hadn't. So what I did is, from that practice, I remembered the key shortcuts for the tool. That's important. The other thing that I knew was the different variables that I had available to me so that I would be able to use those to make what I wanted. Here, Provod's, like I mentioned earlier, making the basic ray marching loop. There were so many emulator jokes in the Twitch chat, I think. Oh, that's nice to know, like some text. But yeah, so I'm just coding this thing here at the bottom. All I'm doing is, right after the plasma, I'm just going to overwrite the color with my own thing here. So I'm just starting to hook up some... I take this UV, which I think is like normalized screen position, or it might be -1 to 1. I can't remember what it is in this setup. And I just multiply it by a big number and add time and then convert that to an integer. So I should get some kind of flashing stuff based on the screen X position in this case. So that's all I was working on at that time. By the way, Alkama, again, shout outs to him for doing the music. He came up to me before and was like, dude, I called dibs on doing music for your Showdown. I was actually really happy about that because I know he does a lot of 4 on the floor stuff, which I was really, really happy with. Because I knew that I wanted to do something that was kind of sync to the music and just kind of abstract. So I was pretty happy to have that. Hey, Middle Voids. So here's some bit pattern crap. It's literally, if we look at this, it's uv.x times a big number plus time, converted to an integer. And then I AND that, logical AND with uv.y times a different big number, and I guess I'm adding time and then converting that to an integer. And the idea is that the time is what's kind of scrolling this, by the way, but like my plan here is that these big numbers will just get some kind of bit pattern that's somewhat interesting. I didn't get something that was as interesting as I had hoped, I think, but it was interesting enough for what I wanted to do with it. And then using different numbers here kind of gets them to sort of click in different areas. And I basically just adjust those constants until it looks good. I also, you'll notice that at least with the operators I'm using here, I think I play with this at one point. It ends up being mostly white instead of black. I wanted it the other way, so I think I flipped that eventually. But here I'm using XOR instead of AND or whatever. Adjusting these constants. Nothing terribly technical here, just having fun. No, I actually really liked that they did the Eurodisco thing, and I feel like I probably could have done... I could have had fun with it, but I'm glad that I had Alkama anyway. Come on, cheer, guys. I don't know how much you can hear the actual audio, but you don't need to hear it too much. Provad has a sphere here in his sphere tracing thing here. So he's got his omega function that's just literally the sphere here. Here he's calculating the normal of the hit position, it looks like. Probably going to use that for lighting. And eventually he uses that for reflections and stuff as well. Right now he's just got the... Here we go. So now he's got the normal being shown. So yeah, really common to use ray marching in these competitions. I don't think I've done ray marching in one of these competitions yet. Maybe I'll change that. So here's my bit patterns. This is actually closer to what I wanted in terms of like, I wanted it to be abstract and kind of get this really clicky look rather than, you know, rather than make it look terribly old school, if that makes sense. So now I'm sort of getting the shapes that I kind of want, but it's running too fast, so I'll probably fix that soon.
Ferris doesn't seem to mind. He's typing happily along in a very long line, and this one line seems to be everything.
And it's funny because in the actual commentary they start making fun of me, in that I have like an extremely distracting effect. But it really didn't matter because I was really focused at this time. Like I didn't even know what Provad was working on until I had kind of gotten to the goal, and I'll let you know when I get there. But as soon as I got to that goal, then I started, you know, looking at other things at all. Well, Kirkby, exactly. I was basically going for 2D absolute territory, but I didn't get as interesting enough or as interesting bit patterns out of this, but it was interesting enough. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm fairly happy with this, so I'm separating out into a function, which I don't technically have to do, but it just makes it a little more convenient when I start building things around this bit pattern. So that's what's going to happen next. So now Provad's doing a directional light. Or he's making a function for a directional light, so he'll probably mix a couple of these. I think he does in the end. And pretty quick here, I start really thinking about like music sync. And all I do for that is I just adjust those constants that I multiply time by before they go into that integer function. And just by adjusting those, they match the music enough. Like they're definitely not the correct rate exactly, but they're good enough. And that's all I need. Not much interesting happening here. I think I hit some compile errors. I just made some stupid mistake, and that kept me a bit distracted. Provad has a light setup at least. Looks like some basic Phong lighting. Yeah, title video is wrong. We're just going to live with it because I can't change it midstream and have it update for people, so no worries. Provad's going to add a box around his stuff. So now I get a rate that I'm a little happier with. And what you can see here is what I did after I separated the thing into the function is I wanted to do radial blur. So I just made a loop here that loops from 0 to 50 and then just accumulate this color. And I adjust the UV a little bit. So in this case, I think UV goes from -1 to 1 across the screen. So I'm able to just multiply that a little bit. So I multiply it by 1 plus a tiny amount based on the iteration count. And so then I'm basically sampling that plus, you know, some stuff away from the center of the screen, and that's what gives me this radial blur look. And here we are going deeper into the 2D realm with some feedback or crash zoom or something. I play a lot with these constants, like how bright it's going to be. Yeah, so this is what the code looks like. It's just I make this color, which is going to be 0. And again, all this is after that plasma crap. I don't ever touch it, I think. And then instead of calling my function, I just do this in a loop where I accumulate that.
I'm very lucky that I do not have to judge which one of these will win because they are so very different.
Yeah, well, Kirkby, if you had like some kind of time that would be like floating point bars, where every like bar was that, then you could do like mod and stuff on that, which would be really cool. Mod and floor and get nice stuff. But you need to convert time codes to that. I know Bonzomatic can't do that on its own, but I don't think it would be terribly difficult to do that with external software.
Ferris' hobby is basically programming, everything computer related. And then we have Probot. His favorite hobby is his family.
And what I start doing here is I think I'm going to polar map it.
32.
Oh no, I'm going to do the rotation. That's what I'm doing here. And again, because UV is -1 to 1, all I'm going to do is just do a basic 2D rotation based on some angle that's going to be based on sinus of the global time. And here Provod's going to add a bunch of boxes to his box. Because here he's got the negative box here, which is going to be like the room around his sphere. So here's the sphere, and then here's the room around it that he's unioning with the sphere. And then here we're going to add the repeated boxes. And now he has a bunch of those boxes. So now I've got my rotation now. And yeah, here's where I adjusted the time so that it starts to be kind of synced with the music. Hey, let's get this. And yeah, now I'm starting to... Oh yeah, I'm still adjusting the radial blur, seeing how whatever feels right there. And now I'm about to add the texture. Provod's got his boxes into the outer box now, rather than just everywhere. I'm guessing he did that... I can't see his distance function, so... Don't actually know what he did, but he probably subtracted a different box. Or something. And here it looks like he's going to make a sinus camera that just flies around. And there's his distance function. So yeah, so he took those outer boxes and then did a intersection of those with a box that's slightly smaller than the other one. So that's why he's got those sort of poking out. And here he's got this T is global time, and the reason why that's often done to put it into different variables because then you can like multiply by like 0.2 or something and start adjusting that time multiplier, which you can make things move faster or slower a lot more conveniently than changing it everywhere in the code. So this is actually kind of interesting because it looks like he's putting his March loop in a loop. Oh, okay, that's what he's doing. He's doing the reflections. So what he does is he has this KD, which is normally going to be, I guess, the original direction. And then in this loop, he's going to, when he hits something, he's going to adjust the direction, then do it again and just add the color. Really easy reflections. Here looks like I'm adding the FFT. I think I tried. No, I haven't done coloring yet. Here I'm doing the coloring. So I've added a little bit of FFT to the shader, and then I'm about to try and add a color thing. So Provod already has his reflections. So I think here, let's see. Yeah, he figures out the direction here by reflecting it about the normal. And then I don't know what this KD thing is actually. Oh, it's got to be the amount of light that he's accumulating, because I think here he multiplies it by 0.5. So the idea is that the material isn't completely reflective. So you're going to get half the color from that you would otherwise. By the way, another thing that I did right as we started that I think I forgot to mention. The first thing I did is gamma correction. So just pow the output color with 1/2.2. I later adjust that to try and get something a little more like with a nonlinear curve. But yeah. Yeah, exactly, Tropical Trevor. The FFT, I don't think it added much, but I remember doing it to I think it was the UV distance, so it like kind of goes wider a little bit with the radial blur. And here I'm playing with palettes, and I don't get very good looking stuff from this. I remember being really unhappy with this. Here's just kind of some rainbow crap. And I played with a couple different palettes that were in there. And I think I just ended up using like the normal texture or something, or the wood texture. And just kind of leaned into a more monochrome looking effect. Here I'm just making things super bright. And I don't do any proper tone mapping. I just do gamma correction. So a lot of this will just saturate, but I'm going to lean into that with the look. More ugly colors. I think here I start to decide that I just want like a basic color ramp. This isn't really working for me. Provide now, instead of just moving the camera around, he's actually rotating the camera around, it looks like. So the idea behind gamma correction is, let's see if I can find a good curve for this. Here we go. Let's do, there's a couple images here we can look at. Super quick gamma correction primer. So the idea behind gamma correction is that you have, like when you output a color to your monitor, if you output like 0 to 1, you expect 0 to be black and 1 to be white, and that's what you get. But if you output 0.5, do you get half brightness? And it turns out no, you don't. And this is actually something from the old CRT days, that the actual output curve is something like this, this bottom curve here. So if you output 0.5, you actually get 0.218 here. And so this is the same effect as if you took the output color from 0 to 1 and raised that to the power of 2.2. You would get this curve. And so what you want to do with gamma correction is instead you sort of bend your color curve outwards so that once it's being displayed on a monitor that reconstructs this bottom curve, the result will be linear. So what we do is we raise the output color to 1 over 2.2, the power of 1 over 2.2. So we sort of bend the colors outward, and then it gets corrected via the monitor. Now, of course, nobody uses CRTs anymore, but when they developed the more modern flat screen displays, since everyone's pictures and all of their other equipment was already outputting with this 2.2 curve, they just stuck with it, and that's what we're left with. So that's what gamma correction is. As a quick aside, this is with and without gamma correction. Some picture I found on the internet. Not something that's needed, but I always just do it right away. So thing about like 3D with a marching loop in 2D is they're really not fundamentally very different. And I think that to at least an audience that's not very familiar with the demo scene, that's a really hard thing for people to grasp, I think. But at least that's how I feel about it. In this case, I just started messing with UV again before it goes into everything else. So in this case, I just did UV.x as abs UV.x, and that will just mirror it on the x-axis. Later, I enable and disable this. So I mix, yeah, I'm doing that here. So I mix the original with the mirrored one with something, something on time, so that'll just come and go. Here I've got the music sync close enough that it starts to feel nice to me, at least. Colors are still really crappy. Yeah, so here it's turning on and off with the mirroring. And I adjust that to be a lot slower, because yeah, I want that to be a bit cooler. Provad, I think at this point, he's playing more with adding lights, things like that. His reflections generally look pretty good here. Okay, no, actually he's reading the FFT. And this is kind of an issue, because I think, again, I think his setup doesn't work with the FFT here. So I think he actually ends up losing a lot of time by trying to use this, because we didn't find out about this until later, if I recall correctly. I didn't know about it until after the party even, so. But I think it was fixed after this round, or after the qualifiers. So here I actually started polar mapping everything. And I messed up the math and decided, no, I'd rather just kind of do some distortions. You can see on my face that I messed up the math. That's what that is. Very, very basic math, and just when I was on the spot, I choked on that. So Provod, I think he's given up on the FFT, so now he started to adjust the camera distance based on a sinus. So here I just did some stuff where I rotate the UV not just based on time, but also based on the original UV, and so you get this kind of twist effect. It doesn't look very good, but I end up keeping a little bit of it, I think. Still haven't fixed the colors because I just kind of know that that's something I can do last minute. So I'm more interested in trying to make the thing look a little bit more interesting here. Yeah, Provod's adding another additional light. So he has a directional light, and he's adding a positional light as well.
It's difficult to do in this short amount of time. You have to really plan ahead, not to get lost in some vector going the wrong direction.
Also, I noticed that his loop goes up to 3 now, so he's actually got a couple bounces here. But it's not any more difficult than doing 1 bounce. And here he's the other light he adds is colored. So I remember him playing around a lot with the different colors of the lights, which is a good move here. Because the geometry doesn't really get any more complex, except I think he starts distorting the sphere, but that's just some trivial stuff. So here he actually removed his directional light, and he's doing only point lights, which I think is a good move. It generally looks better with this kind of scene. And here he's got the cinematic blue and yellow. And now I've committed to at least some kind of color that I thought looked a bit better. It's not pretty, but it had the right vibe that I wanted, where it just kind of looked, you know, abstract, kind of whatever. And so here what I'm doing, they're asking what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is one effect that like I find always works in these competitions. What I do is I add a ramp that's just like I take the uv.y, for example, and that gives you like a gradient from like 0 to 1. And I multiply that by the FFT, so it gives you this kind of flash just that's like focused on either the top or bottom of the screen with that gradient. And then you raise it to some power to adjust like the fall off. And I think I stole that from some MFX demos, because if you watch a bunch of MFX stuff, they get really cool like color textures, even with low dynamic range. And so I'm basically ripping that off. And it tends to be something that you can do extremely quickly, and it also looks decent. So I'm adding that. And that'll be just some flashing stuff that I think will look good. Yeah, sorry, Will Cookby. I'll have to add you to my whitelist. But I'm not going to do that right now. And here I actually pull the original UV because I want to use that for the UV before all the distortion, because I want to use that to do the ramp, not the UV that I actually have down here, which has all the rotations and mirroring in it. And here I seem to be struggling to get that working. Here we go. So at least here is some kind of thing about the UV, so then it starts to work. Now Provod's got his sphere being distorted, and he's adjusting rates. I think he's confused. Here, maybe that's about the FFT not working. Yeah, so here now I've got this ramp at least. And I think I'm just multiplying it by now, but I'm going to do some additive stuff here. So here there's this white tint up here. And I'm going to start coloring that. I think I make that blue to contrast the orange here. I messed that up a few times, but... So the way this distortion works, by the way, is you just take the sphere radius and you add a sinus to it. With the y coordinate and then time. Looks like he's adjusting his cameras again. So now I'm trying to find some FFT stuff. I've got the flashing working now. And so now I'm just going to adjust it and then add colors to it. So here, it looks like I found the snare, but I think I want the kick. So I think I turn that down a little. I think I add another gradient at the bottom too, like the opposite of this one that I put at a different FFT frequency. Because at this point, that's what I'm really going for. Is like, can I make this more interesting? Looks like Provod is trying to do some post effects in 2D. So I think the most impressive thing about Provod Shader in this is how quickly he was able to get it running. The scene itself is really basic, but it does look quite good, especially with the reflections for a shader compo. So now I've got a really saturated blue. I'm totally going for ugly colors that I like anyway. And I remember also the dynamics coming from the FFT were really back and forth. Yeah, so here I add some pink stuff at the bottom and then some blue stuff at the top, and then get at least a lot of colors. But like when the music drops and stuff, I remember in particular there was a lot of like difference in dynamics. So I actually throughout the competition kept adjusting the FFT stuff just to kind of fit the music. At this point, though, the effect is basically what I wanted to make, and so I was pretty happy with 6 minutes left. So I started adjusting the bit patterns again. At this point, I know I'm not going to do anything fundamentally different, so it's more just about adjusting what I have. I think this isn't the best stream for me to start talking a lot about how demos are generally made. I have plenty of other videos to watch if you're interested in that, though. Provod's mostly just adjusting rates as well. And I'm more just adjusting FFT. At one point, I did consider, around this time, I started considering, like, how quickly could I actually make a Ray Marcher and start Ray Marching this as a height map, but I decided against it because I knew that even if I got it working, because this is, like, pure black and white, there would be so many discontinuities that I thought it would look bad anyway. So, yeah. So, I also started doing things like clamping the UV, just to see if there's anything interesting there. I also do mirroring of Y as well, like I did with the X, but at different rates and stuff. I mean, generally, I'm actually really happy with this kind of look in this short period of time. But I think it's obvious why Provod's won. His was a lot more appealing. Maybe. I'm still a bit partial to mine, but I'm a bit biased. Not that I don't think he deserved to win, because I think he did deserve to win. I think he made a great shader, but I was just really happy with mine. Yeah, sorry, kiddo. I think it's awesome that you're interested. I just it's hard for me to get into how demos are made generally in the middle of a stream about commenting on shaders. So now Provod's adjusting his light positions with some sinuses, which I think is a really good move. And at this point, I basically have no ideas on how to change this in a way that would make it like more fundamentally interesting. I did start thinking about at some point about getting the revision logo in, because that's more additional bit patterns that I could have mixed with these ones. But I think because we had 4 minutes left, I was kind of uncomfortable. So yeah, I have no idea what to do, and so I just wanted to show it because I was pretty happy with what I made. So.
Yeah, Ferris is at a stage where adding more will just mess it up. Okay, here we go.
And then yeah, at this point I remember the music just started kicking in with a lot more dynamics again, so I had to adjust the FFT a little bit. But at this point I basically want to just let my effect play. Yeah, it probably does, with especially those saturated reds and yellows. Probably looks a lot like Sauron's eye. Yeah, at this point I'm really out of ideas. Let's see what Provod's doing. Looks like he's adding an ambient term. Some noisy stuff.
Robot Science seems to want to add some noise because this looks very clean, but clean is not always good. Okay, so we're going last 2.5 minutes. People cheer for them, cheer.
I think mine just like does not progress between this, except I keep trying to play with the colors, but I think it gets worse from here. Molliv, thanks for the sub. I don't even think I've seen Provad Shader at this point in the competition.
Yeah, of course they can make something to make it different, especially verse. That's easy.
They're talking in the actual commentary about how easy it is to make things worse, and that's definitely what I'm doing at this point.
Making less clean, I suppose, but with only 1 minute.
I think Provad's just trying to add more noise here. Some kind of noise based on the positions.
And Ferris, well, this is a style that you really cannot really mess up. It's messed up already in a way, but in a good way.
So yeah, still trying to get different colors, different whatever, just to kind of polish it up, but I'm basically done at this point.
1.5 minutes. 1.5 minutes. These reflections are really nice.
Provad's looks super clean at this point. I like the specular exponents here. Just looks really, really smooth. I think the other thing that's hard for me to tell here at this point is just how, how should I say, epileptic mine looks. Because on the small screen, it gives a very different effect than on the large screen. And I think if I had turned it down, that would have looked a lot better. But I was having fun.
This really looks massive on Provad's side. On the Ferris side, well, we got a bad situation with the syncing now, but that is easily fixed. Okay, we have 30 seconds left, people. We're gonna go to the last.
Yeah, so here I'm adjusting powers, adjusting the FFT more.
I want you again to count out with me. These guys have been coding for 25 minutes. The last I say is count.
And we're like 30 seconds left.
Here we go.
Again, not much more to say on either side. Provad's basically done. He's moved everything around, adjusted all his rates. I'm basically done.
Here we go. It's gonna go 10, 9, 8, 7.
And I think I start going like, oh, I don't know what to add. I don't know what to add, and throwing my arms up. And so the guys actually came over several times to make sure that my keyboard was okay again. That's kind of funny. So this was the first time I think I remember even looking at Provad Shader.
They're done. Let's go. Let's show them. Let's show the shaders. Okay, show Provad, and you guys cheer if you want him to go through. Give it up for Provad! Now let's see Ferris shader. Show Ferris shader. Give it up, Ferris! Give it up for Ferris!
Can't hear too much difference in the audience between, at least on the cap. And I remember at the time, I could not tell who won based on the, because that's what they were doing here. They were listening to how loud the audience cheered on either end rather than something a little more rigorous like phone voting. And I could not hear a difference. But yeah, then they say who won, and yeah, I went over and shook Provad's hand, and that was basically it.
And the next and last round for tonight will be the all-star repetition of last year's final. Who knows? It's LG.
So yeah, that was pretty fun.
So, come to the stage, bring your keyboards. We'll see each other again in a few minutes.
So yeah, so that was what it was. Basically all it was. I was kind of hoping that it would take me longer to explain all this than it did. I don't really know what to do now. Zokwar, are the Soulscogan ones on YouTube? I mean, I probably don't have nearly as much context in my head. So I doubt I'd do as good commentary on that, but I should actually look. I think they just call it live programming. Or live coding or something. Yeah, they actually are on here. Although I want to find the right one if I'm going to do comment on these. Because there's one of these that I'm really happy with that I think was 2016. Might have been 2015, actually. Yeah, including the the Duckers commentary, which is particularly special. The Kuzma is all commentary is also pretty special. Thanks, Dark Second, for the sub. Appreciate that. Yeah, why don't I just save this recording and then we can watch that again, and then I'll commentate on me commentating on what we just watched. I'm just gonna see if I can find this here. But yeah, it doesn't seem that there are more videos of this from the year that I was hoping. Because there's one of these shaders that I was really happy with at one point. But that's fine. I think this one I did not like. We can look at this one though. This was the qualifier. I was also out in the first round at Solskjaer last year. We can probably watch this, and then we can call it done for today.
So I guess they both want to warm up their keyboards by entering lots of garbage.
So I don't really know when we start. So it's me versus Blueberry, and this is a kind of interesting one because Blueberry totally had his planned, like to the letter basically. Yeah, we face each other and we're like right next to each other. I actually think that's more fun because I don't know. I'm not that competitive with this stuff. It's more that it's just fun to hang out with someone in code. But yeah, so Blueberry knows exactly what he's doing. I have an idea of what I wanted to do. And it's interesting because I did it. I did the idea, like it had all the elements, but they weren't done enough that I feel like I really gave the idea that I had justice. And I really should have practiced it because I think I had a really good idea. But yeah. But I didn't practice. I had an idea what I wanted to make, but that was it. I don't think them having themed would be much better, to be honest. Like, I feel like there's a pretty good balance of people that memorize stuff and people that don't anyway. And even the people where it looks like they memorize everything, a lot of the time they don't memorize everything. So, I don't know. I don't feel like that's actually a problem. The vibe here is completely different, by the way. Solskjaer is a lot more like small and intimate party. I highly recommend you go. It's awesome. But yeah. So what I'm gonna go for here, need to turn down the commentary a bit. What I'm gonna go for here is I had the idea to build like a shader compo within the shader compo, right? So I wanted to have basically this setup, right? There's an effect and an effect, and then some text being written in a darkened window above that. That was my idea. So what I've got ahead of me is I have to make something that looks like a text writer, which was based on the stuff that I did for Engage, our 64K from Revision last year. And on top of that, make, you know, enough of two effects that it actually looked like something. So the first thing I'm doing here is making a noise function. And this is the part I really should have practiced because I just put some crap in here and that actually ended up making it look really bad. And what's interesting about what Blueberry's doing is that he's going for a Commodore 64 Plasma, which was actually totally like foreshadowing the fact that he was going to do his first C64 4K later in the year. And I found out about it at this party, but he wanted to keep it under wraps. So it's pretty funny. The red pulse on my screen that they're talking about in the commentary, I don't know if you guys can hear that anymore. I'm going to do this instead. I really like when these guys commentate on this stuff. It's really funny. Duckers and Kuzma. But yeah, so he's doing this whole screen here. He's basically figured out the center points and the scaling so that he can, you know, build the classic C64 border around this and then figure out where these are going to be as well. Yeah, it doesn't really matter that you guys hear the commentary, the actual commentary. So yeah, so right now he's just seeing if you're inside or outside that border, and if you are, do different things. Starting out with just basic colors. And I'm over there. The reason my screen was flashing earlier was because, like this, is that I'm just testing the noise functions. All I do is even output the noise, and I'm just trying to get this noise to be noisy enough with just some crap numbers. I should have gone for, like, more specifically, like pines. Did I say pines? Primes. I don't know where pines came from. The funny thing here, too, is that in terms of commentary, you can really hear what they're saying a lot more in this environment than you can in the Revision environment. And I just find that hilarious. And I know these guys really well, so they talk a lot of crap about me while they commentate, which I just think is hilarious, too. But yeah, so I'm still working on my noise. I think I get it more or less close enough here. But yeah. They're talking about my plasma, but really it's supposed to be my closest thing to random that I can get. So Blueberry already has started to get his colors in place and also figuring out where the border and everything is. Adjusting his center positions. Yeah, so here he's got enough of his border here. I clap. I think that's pretty funny. Yes, exactly, Shoal Brother. That's exactly what happens. By the way, Blueberry crushes me in this compo. But yeah, so I'm working on the text writer. So what I basically do is I have like an area of the screen set aside, and I separate that into grid cells just by like, I think I take the UV, like normalize 0 to 1, and then just multiply that by some number and cast that to an integer. And that gives you sort of like a cell index. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate text being written in those different cells by basically adjusting things based on time offsets with when glyphs will kind of appear. So I figure out, like, based on the cell index, you know which line you're on and you know which column you're on. And based on which line you're on, you can figure out like a line length, the length of that line's going to be on. So you can have them be varying lengths. And then you can figure out, like, based on time on the last line, how much of the last line should have been displayed by now. So I'm basically doing that stuff. Completely analytic, and even in Gauge, it was mostly just like noise patterns with FBM, but it actually looked really good as sort of glyphs when they were really small. So I was hoping this would work out, but I really should have practiced this because I didn't, and I don't think I pulled this off very well. Like, basically, no one knew what it was by the time the compo finished. When I said it, a lot of people were like, oh! And then they changed their votes. But the way I see it is, I didn't do it well enough for them to realize what it was before me saying it. So, that's how it is. So, this is really funny. Because basically, what Blueberry's done here is he's decided he's going to simulate some pre-calc. This is one of the things I actually love, by the way, about when you make this competition into something that's more live than just the end result. He has no reason to do this, basically, other than it's awesome. He's simulating a lot of these old disc loaders. What they would do is they would just increment the background color register. So as it's loading, you get just this crap here. And you'll see that on ZX Spectrum. You'll see that on Amiga. And also C64. So he's simulating the loading, which he has no reason to do other than it's just cool. And he's gonna make it look good first, and then he's gonna do his effect. And what's funny here. In a lot of these compos, you see people go for, like, if they've practiced something, they do it in the first round because you never know if you're going to win or lose. Like, the results tend to be really volatile. So, so that's why he's going for his big idea first. So here I'm just looking at these cell indices and getting noise from them, trying to kind of scale how the text is going to look. And I'm messing up a lot in the code. But just kind of figuring out what the scales of the characters are going to be here. And yeah, it does say text, and Eric totally calls it. Kuzma, he knows I'm going to do a text plotter here.
As I pointed out in the previous round, these guys have a tendency to hide their actual intentions until the last minute when they uncomment those crucial lines that just add another dimension.
So now, the funny thing about Blueberries is he's still letting that loading thing show while he's typing out everything else. Definitely style points. So now he's figuring out his actual sinus here. I think it's for the actual plasma, I guess. So he's added up 4 signs. I'm guessing he changes the X's to Y's, and he's probably going to start just changing these constants as well. And he's going to switch to displaying this pretty soon, because as cute as the pre-calc thing is, he's going to need to see what he's doing as he builds the actual effect. My screen goes pretty dark, so here you can see I have sort of the shape of the text here. Is what I've got there. And Blueberry's got his plasma. So right now it's just basic sine plasma. The cool thing here is that he's got the border and he's got a plasma. So even if he doesn't have time to make the colors work, he's basically there. So what he has left to do is he has the dithering that he's going to do, which is, I think, the most impressive thing here is that he does the dithering, he does the C64 colors, and he makes it pixelated in the right way. So it gets pretty cool. I don't think it has exactly the correct aspect, but that really doesn't matter. Also, I actually don't know if he does the actual C64 colors here. I don't think he does. I think he just gets close enough, which is the right move. So now I've really got the shape of the text going on my screen. But it's not a writer yet, and I remember really feeling the pressure already. Like, this took way longer than I thought it would. Because Engage, it's not a lot of code, but you kind of have to get the details right for it to work at all. Otherwise, it just looks like crap. And now they're making fun of my ponytail, which I thought was pretty funny. Although I don't remember laughing at the time because I was pretty focused. So now I'm making the writer kind of go up. Blueberry is putting his signs into another sign. Oh, it's not even that. He just took the integer of that. And fract gives you the different steps. So that's him basically quantizing the colors. And now he's starting to add his dither function. And here I'm doing the writing. Right now it's basically writing every line, but I'm going to only do that on the last line. And then I need to add a little bit of margin around the different characters, and then I need to also have better patterns for the characters. The other thing is, because my noise isn't a very good FBM, the lines don't really line up in the way that actual text would. So like this looks really random, but if we look at actual code, like they kind of follow some kind of structure, even if there's a lot of deep nesting. And that was something that I got right in the Engage text writer, but I really struggled with here. I can't say enough times, like I really wish I had practiced this, because I'm still really happy that I had the idea, but it just didn't work out. But at the same time, I'm also happy I went for it. So, and even if I had done it, I might have lost to what Blueberry's making here, just because it was such a good idea and such good execution as well. So his dither pattern is just you take the XY, take X and 1, and then XOR that with X, XOR Y, and 1, shift left 1. So just some bit pattern crap. And I think the reason he does X and 1 here actually is to get the double wide pixels, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't think either of us end up even using the F15 in this. Yeah, and here the writer, I remember struggling getting the last line to show properly and getting the scaling right. That was what I was struggling with. Now Blueberry's got his dithering, and that looks great. He's so happy. So he totally went for the right order of things, right? He did the border, he got the plasma, and what he's going to do is he's going to, I think here he starts the color table even. But the idea is that he's already got his effect. So even if he didn't have enough time to do the proper colors, like he's made his point already. So he's sitting pretty right now. So he's just going to do the colors. I think he has these memorized, which are the actual colors. Maybe not, though. But yeah, he's going for it. I think I'm still struggling with the text writer at this point, and that I'm definitely in trouble in that sense, because again, I was supposed to have a text writer and then double that, and then behind each one do like enough of an effect suit so it looked like a shader compo. And I don't think that was going well for me at this point. I think here I'm adding some margins.
Legendary competition between Blueberry and Ferris. Let's get some applause going just because of the fact that they're there. Yeah. Code against each other. One in one dimension and one in two dimensions.
The revision one had a questionnaire about, like, they asked who your favorite opponent was and who your most feared opponent was. And I totally put Blueberry as my favorite, and I didn't put anyone for my most feared because I fear no one. Which is not true, but yeah. Yeah, so now I'm starting to get like the left and the right thing here. Blueberry's actually got a proper palette here. And these are, as far as I know, C64 light colors. They don't seem like the exact colors, but they're definitely close enough. And these colors were used in his, or the colors that are closest to these were used in his actual 4K. So there you go. Now they're making fun of his refresh rate because we're doing 60 hertz, but it should be 50 for a European C64, which is kind of funny.
But I think that Blueberry somehow, somewhere in here, encoded the actual correct values for the C64 borders. And there's a plasma going on in the middle. And meanwhile,
And now, so here's the last thing he's doing. It's not just a plasma, by the way. It's a zoom plasma. So now he's got the border, he's got the plasma, he's got the colors, and the dithering. So again, he did this in the right order because right now he can just pull away his code and he's basically got this covered. But what he's going to do is he's calculating this position relative to the center of the screen. So he's going to turn this into a zoomer. And here I have the printers going at different rates, but I still struggle to get the ones at the bottom writing out correctly. And the actual shapes of the text, which I think is what I'm doing here. That didn't work out really well either. Oh no, so here I'm even just adjusting the UV coordinates. So there I've at least got one writer kind of working.
that is just unreadable text printing. It's a little bit cool, isn't it?
And now Blueberry's got a zoomer.
You've seen plasmas before.
But well, the thing is, Blueberry is right now like moonwalking over his ass.
Now this, of course, getting a plasma to be this smooth on C64 would really be a feat. I can tell you right now that's not going to happen. At least not in stock, but it does look really good. Or not in stock at that frame rate. But yeah, looks super good. He's definitely got his point across.
But I still want some promise here.
Now he's just going to be adjusting the dithering and stuff more.
And it now looks like Blueberry did a step backwards and did the.
And we actually have our first caller. That's Torben calling in. Yeah.
Let's call in and see.
Torben is calling in through Facebook. I didn't even know that was possible. So Torben, let's hear you.
No one knows what you're saying, Torben.
You have to just speak louder, Torben.
So now I've got my text writers, and we're 8 minutes in, and I still have to hopefully make this look more like text, but I think at that point I might even just start doing the other effects. Yeah, that's actually what it looks like I'm doing. It's just doing the effects behind it.
Nazareth is a shitty group.
And if you call back Torben, Oda is actually preparing for
Yeah, so I've separated the left and right halves of the screen that I'm going to do the different effects on. So that's what I was doing, was visualizing which one that was. Blueberry, again, just tweaking his plasma. He's in a really good spot here.
would like to say we're totally open to calls.
Now we have a slight improvement here. There's a red and a black shitty scroller. And
So yeah, so now I've got the different effect halves here and where they're going to be.
I'm trying to look at a cone and trying to consider.
And so now I just start actually making the effects, I think, even though right now they're just squares.
I don't know what the code is trying.
If I would, do you ever write shaders for a day job? Yes. Yes, I do. You don't write shaders like this, though, because these are really, really bad shaders in almost every other context.
Old school platforms that this is supposed to emulate could never do, but it looks possible. So buy it.
In terms of being,
Torben's, I missed.
like, really inefficient ways to do these, or slow, or whatever.
I'm so sorry I missed.
Or hacked-in margins or whatnot.
Torben, please call back.
But yeah. I've done a fair bit of graphics programming professionally.
Now we're down to 7 minutes.
I'm extremely curious what Jake, aka Ferris, actually wants to do about this, because there's a very slow-moving terminal on the right-hand side doing green, and similarly a very slow-moving terminal.
I don't know what I was going for here. I think I was trying to put margins around the symbols, which is a really bad idea to do here. I really should have been focusing on the effects. But But I was doing some kind of margins here and not doing it right. So
The most fierce shader riders ever on the stage, and you have 6.5 minutes to do something more than a lo-fi plasma and some text that doesn't even read like text.
But I would suggest that everyone votes.
yeah, I'm really hung up on getting this text to look a little better. Okay, there I got some margins at least vertically. But that was really, again, the wrong thing for me to focus on. In hindsight. Yeah, and there I've gotten the columns.
Votes of the not Jake right now.
I'm starting to wonder if this is what Jake actually memorized. Is it a
But now
typewriter?
something is happening here.
Yeah, you can start to tell the individual characters apart.
Yeah. There's like lines going on. I mean,
So now I'm just saying, okay, I need to do something with the effect. And I do actually think I try to do a plasma here. In order to copy Blueberry. But I didn't know what he was doing beforehand, so this was just, I just decided to do a plasma. And my plasma math wasn't very good, but I think it's enough to do some kind of plasma. And now Blueberry's taking this opportunity to add some like FFT stuff, which is a really good move because he, like I said, he had his thing done. So he's just got to have fun now. I think honestly, this shader that Blueberry's doing is like my favorite of any of the live coding shaders that I've ever seen. I think it's so good. And so now I'm just hacking something together for the effect on the right side.
alright, but it seems like Jake is now changing to a circular pattern on the
Exactly, Will Kirkby.
So these guys, they're not exactly noobs of
Yeah, so Blueberry's just trying to make his stuff look more polished now. But 5 minutes left. He's more digging for stuff to do, whereas I'm frantically trying to get my stuff done.
2D plane, and they haven't
So now I got a noise texture. So at this point, I think like this is sort of enough to have accomplished what I wanted to do, but it just looks bad. It just did not work out as well as I'd hoped.
hardware, is that the thing? Yeah, think so. Jake's on his hipster MacBook and Blueberry's on his reasonable laptop, I guess.
I'm gonna say
So I think I go back to start making the text look better, which again is, I think, the wrong thing to do here. I think focusing on the different effects and trying to bring it out more that it looks like a shader compo would have been better. But yeah, so it looks like what I'm doing is I'm going to actually try to make the characters look like characters rather than just boxes. Again, in hindsight, I think that's the wrong thing to do. If I had a better noise function and I had written it about twice as fast, then I could have, I think, pulled this idea off really well. But it still would have been extremely hard to beat what Blueberry has made here. And again, those conditions may not have been very reasonable. So
It's more whether it's a 664. There's a 3 minute left.
so right now. Oh, we're at 3 minutes left. So you both better bring your A game.
Blueberry again, just tweaking his plasma.
Currently, I would say there's someone bringing a consistent picture on screen and someone bringing some random red blobs. You know what I mean? Don't you, Jake?
I like Blueberry's FFT stuff here. Just that gradient is super nice. And I'm just messing up trying to get the color here. I think I just started over trying to do that noise stuff again.
Turn out to be like some kind of weird, like logic comma instructions, blah blah blah. Stuff like that.
Is Ferris trying to confuse us by having two very similar looking code displays while the other one is showing us plasma with code on top? 2 minutes left.
Yeah. So we're less than 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to remind you all
So now I have something that's kind of like characters, but again, it's
ridiculous things.
it's all over now.
Compare this to platforms. Totally not working on Ep.035 platforms. They're actually working on 60
Yeah, really struggling to get this to look like characters at this point. So I think here I start trying to do something more interesting with the effect on the right rather than just displaying a noise texture. Oh no, this is actually the left.
And I'm very interested in seeing the patterns that we're gonna see here now from Jake, because you can tell that he's trying to do some kind of letter writing.
Ola here is here to inform you about how to actually vote.
Oh, I know what I was doing here. This was really cheeky and a bad idea. What I was going to try to do is, this is actually funny. What I was trying to do here is, you see I make a big red circle. I was going to do one of those circles with a slash through it, trying to like even bring it more home that I was winning or whatever, but yeah. That's what I was trying to do, and I think I really failed to make that happen, if I remember correctly.
Entered in. Alright, so it takes back its 45 seconds very soon. What are we seeing?
Yeah, so now I've got at least the circle part, and then I think I struggled to get the slash.
Circle?
I think Jake is trying to quickly make a Logic Coma logo or something like that.
I think I'm doing a Logic Coma logo, but that's not what's happening.
Scrolling through it. And he has 30 seconds left right now to try to nail the logo of his group. It's still angled the wrong way. It's still, you know, the wrong number of circles.
But
But
we're actually watching the Clash of the Titans here.
yeah,
And it's just 14 seconds left. And we need the audience to decide
it
which,
seems Blueberry forfeited. No, not forfeited.
who is winning. 4, 3, 2.
Yeah, so I actually get kind of close to getting that shape. But then I have to give up. And then I tell Blueberry what it is.
Alright, so while we just leave the effects on the screen, let's go through them. Let's start with Blueberry. We have Blueberry's effect in full screen, please.
He likes it, but he clearly won.
So what are we seeing here?
But yes, that's exactly what I was trying to do, Foss 2K.
The rest of us is obviously playing to the old school.
That was the idea, at least.
We're seeing a plasma effect with pretty few colors actually, like dithered pretty nicely.
But yeah, Blueberry killed it with this shader, for sure.
Too nice to be an actual C64 effect.
That might be true, but it looks kind of plausible, I would say.
And let's go to Ferris's effect. Let's have it.
I have no idea what this is.
And the commentators say they have no idea what it is, so I have to yell it at them.
What? So he tried to
And then like, oh, it's a live coding compo, and then yeah, but
live coding compo. So yeah. You're allowed to applause.
Alright, so now that we've seen both effects, I think it's time to close down the voting. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and voting is closed. So,
and we'll wait for them to see the score.
see who goes on to the final.
Although it's pretty obvious. I like how it counts up like this too. You do mobile voting like live. So. And like right after this was done, I was just like, okay, I need to work on my intro because we released a C64 4K, ironically containing a Zoom plasma, at this party, and so I wanted to get right back to work. But yeah. Anyway, that's two rounds of shader coding with commentary now. Well, this is only 60 people. Only 60 people voting at least. There's a couple hundred people at the party, I think. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna head out. This was kind of fun. If I come up with anything else that I can, you know, meaningfully do commentary over again, then I'll let you guys know. But I think I might have something really cool planned for next weekend, and I'll announce that on Twitter. So anyway, thanks guys for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.